It's a modern-day David versus Goliath, with the Goliath in this story having deep pockets to sink deep wells.
Found out what the situation was, and it was worse than I thought. And after trying to find out how much it would be to drill, found out that was way out of my price range.
Vance Williams has lived on this land in Pierce, Arizona for 12 years. His 320-foot well ran dry 2 years ago, so he looked into deepening it.
It would have been about 40 to 50,000, and honestly, knowing what I know, that would be too shallow.
Instead, the Air Force veteran installed a water tank and a pump. That cost $3,000 and then had water delivered.
That's $150 a month and enough water to carefully use water, not water you would normally live with having water.
Williams is among the growing number of homeowners near Wilcox who have had their wells run dry. Wilcox does not have access to Colorado River water. It relies solely on groundwater. According to the Cochise groundwater stewards, groundwater levels in the area are falling 3 to 10 feet annually.
These are not sustainable levels. We're going to deplete the water. This water is a gift to us in the desert. This water's been here underneath us for over 40,000 years. And in a very short time, we're going to deplete all that water if we don't change the situation.
The situation is largely driven by industrial agriculture, with agriculture irrigation in the Wilcox Basin up 80% since 2000.
Over the last 10 years, the influx of big corporate industrial agriculture has been huge. All this land has been cleared. All these crops have been planted. It's a huge, huge industry there and a huge drain on the groundwater supply that's available.
One of the biggest industrial agriculture operations in the basin is Riverview Dairy. The Minnesota company has been in the area since 2014 and operates multiple dairies, including the Coronado Dairy. There are other agriculture operations and nut growers, but Riverview is the largest. Kissel says Riverview uses 110,000 acre-feet of water a year and has about 60,000 acres of irrigated land.
Riverview is the biggest player, and they currently irrigate about 60% of the water basin. They own about 60% of the irrigated land in the Wilcox Basin where I live, and they pump more water on an annual basis than is pumped by the entire city of Tucson water system in 1 year.
Riverview did not respond to several requests for an interview. And homeowners aren't the only ones dealing with declining water levels. Sam Pillsbury owns the Pillsbury Wine Company in Wilcox. He planted his first vine 22 years ago.
In the last 15 years, the water level has dropped 100 feet.
Pillsbury says he had to dig a new 800-foot well last year. It cost $125,000. Right now, there are no limitations on how much groundwater can be pumped in Wilcox.
There literally are no restrictions on them coming in and drilling very deep wells and taking as much water as they need.
Without regulations, there's absolutely nothing keeping them from buying up more acres, digging deeper wells, pumping out more water. And there's also nothing to keep others like them from coming in.
Now, in November, Wilcox voters will get to decide the town's water future when they vote on creating an active management area. From the studio, Shelle Jackson, News 4, Tucson. Well, Sean, Monica, no ruling was issued today. Both sides, Planned Parenthood of Arizona and the Arizona Attorney General's office, answered questions and made their argument before a 3-judge panel.
The trial court erred in lifting the injunction on Arizona's near-total ban on abortion, Section 133603, without accounting for the laws passed to regulate abortion in the last 5 decades.
Planned Parenthood is asking the court to make the dozens of abortion laws in Arizona consistent.
Why do we even need to go with harmonization? Can't we mundanely apply what the Supreme Court said in Unum?
Judge Swan focusing his questioning here on harmonizing, expressing concern that it was implied repeal.
3603 applies with its exception. The 15-week law applies with its exception. the post-viability law applies with its exception.
Okay.
The Arizona Attorney General's office arguing all of Arizona's abortion laws can coexist.
If an abortion occurred, let's say at 18 weeks, for example.
No, let's say at 10 weeks.
Okay, 10 weeks. 3603, with its exception, would apply. The 15-week law would not apply, would not apply.
Would not apply.
Right.
At 10 weeks, the 15-week law would not apply. Okay.
Correct.
So effectively, then, the 15-week law would be a nullity in that case, right?
No, because the 15-week law, if an abortion occurs at 18 weeks, the prosecutor has the discretion to charge under the 15-week law.
This could create confusion over which law would prevail. News 4 caught up with Planned Parenthood after the hearing. They say allowing all laws to remain on the books is essentially a ban.
Yes, our position is that their proposed interpretation, which just allows all the laws to coexist and prosecutors to decide, effectively means that abortion is banned, which is what we saw during the time that the trial court's order was in effect before.
Criminal law has multiple overlapping statutes that apply during different situations, and so both laws can exist at the same time.
So again, no ruling was issued today, and there's no time frame for when a ruling may come down. And I should mention that everything can change in January when a new attorney general and a new state legislature is sworn in. Reporting live from downtown, Shelle Jackson, News 4, Tucson. Many of Arizona's waterways are ephemeral. They're dry, flowing only after a period of rainfall. Some of them are also WOTUS, Waters of the United States. And with the Supreme Court likely to define that term, many are worried it could gut the Clean Water Act, putting thousands of Arizona's waterways at risk.
Right. They are trying to weaken the Clean Water Act and make it so it applies to fewer waters in many places, including here in Arizona.
Conservationists fear the Supreme Court's decision could yank Arizona waterways from federal protection, opening the door to developers and the mining industry who have long argued the definition of WOTUS is too broad.
They would not have to get permits for certain activities. They wouldn't have to mitigate the harm from certain activities. There wouldn't be a public interest determination relative to what they're proposing.
WOTUS designation is crucial in protecting the nation's waterways from dumping.
If you can regulate what is dumped and what flows into those major water courses, that provides a cleaner water system at the end of the day.
And with Arizona in a 2-decade-long drought, protecting our water supply is critical.
Any designated waterway that we can't use any administrative guidance on compromises our ability to protect the basin.
The Arizona Department of Environmental Quality, ADEQ, says Arizona has strong protections already in place.
No matter what happens at that federal level, we now have a state program that will protect our important waters, regardless of the decisions being made in Washington, D.C.
But conservation groups say that program is inadequate.
They do not intend to protect most of our desert washes and isolated springs and arroyos.
Now, Pima County says it doesn't expect to change the way it manages its waterways, regardless of the Supreme Court decision. From the west side, Shelle Jackson, News 4, Tucson. This stretch of asphalt looks like any other road in Tucson, but it's not. It's a smog-eating, solar-reflecting road, which could be part of the city's plan to reduce urban heat.
The encouragement is to get pedestrians to walk and get out of their vehicles more.
Manufacturers say the pavement, called Plus TI, reduces carbon emissions by 60% and cuts temperatures 10 to 12 degrees.
If we could reduce those temperatures, it's going to be a huge accomplishment.
Tucsonans are used to high temperatures, but scientists say it's getting hotter.
So the average annual temperature for Tucson has already increased by 4.5 degrees Fahrenheit. since 1970 due to climate change and the urban heat island effect.
And those rising temperatures can impact the economy, infrastructure, and public health. According to the Arizona Department of Health Services, there were 522 heat-related deaths in 2020 and 552 in 2021.
Extreme heat is the #1 weather-related killer in the United States, although it's sometimes called the invisible climate risk because it's less dramatic than wildfires, flooding, hurricanes, disasters like that.
Tucson is working on a plan that focuses on mitigation and adaptation.
We have been planning for heat, we have been planning for drought for a very, very long time.
Instead of delegating heat resiliency to one department, it's spread out across many. Tucson has several programs to reduce urban heat, like Tucson Million Trees, an effort to increase the tree canopy and reduce urban heat by planting 1 million trees in the city by 2030. The city is harvesting stormwater in its Storm to Shade program and also has the largest public transit fleet with zero-emission buses. But the clock is ticking.
If we're not careful and climate change continues at its current pace, a place like Tucson could experience as much as 45 more days of 90 degrees or above temperatures each year.
For more information on the city's climate plan, check our website, kvoa.com. From Midtown, Shelle Jackson, News 4, Tucson. Caitlin Preble says Walgreens initially refused to refill a prescription for her teenage daughter. She takes the medication for juvenile arthritis, but it can be used to treat ectopic pregnancies.
I was shaking. I was in tears. I was just so many emotions, really. I was upset.
Caitlin Preble's daughter, Emma, has taken methotrexate for juvenile arthritis for more than 6 years.
It affects all of her joints. So as she has systemic, so it also affects her organs. When she has a flare, it affects everything, her eyes, her bladder, her esophagus, her intestines.
And so without the methotrexate, her main treatment medication would be negatively affected.
Preble said Walgreens texted her last month saying Emma's methotrexate refill was denied. This just days after a Pima County Superior Court judge lifted an injunction on an 1864 near-total abortion ban in Arizona.
We've never had an issue, and now that there's these extreme laws put into place, it's affecting healthcare, period. And that's not okay. It's affecting girls. It's affecting little girls.
Walgreens tells News 4 Tucson their focus is meeting the needs of their patients, but that new laws in various states require additional steps for dispensing certain prescriptions and apply to all pharmacies, including Walgreens.
My daughter's not feeling the pain yet, but the thought that her life right now might be taken away scares every bit of her.
So Walgreens did eventually refill that prescription after about 24 hours. The doctor says a complaint has been filed with the state pharmacy board. From the west side, Shelle Jackson, News 4, Tucson.